In Tragedy, a true crime podcast, we discuss crimes that may be violent in nature. At times, we may cover homicides, missing people, and other topics that may be unsettling. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Tragedy, a true crime podcast. I'm Elisa.
And I'm Michael.
In this episode, we will be wrapping up our focus on Ian Rogers, who's been missing for almost a year. Can you believe?
That's correct. I can't believe it's been a year.
It's coming up. Unfortunately, the anniversary of his disappearance is coming up, and this will be our last episode on Ian's case, unless something comes up, unless we hear something, and we're always watching and monitoring. We'll be focusing on some theories that we have developed that may kind of our thinking on what may have happened to Ian. We do want to let listeners know that we'll be talking about some very sensitive topics. So please be mindful where you are listening to this episode. And we'll also hear from Ian's mom, Teresa. Before we really dig into these theories, we have 4 that we want to talk about. I do want to again give a shout out to all the people who participated in this series on Ian Rogers. You know, when we originally heard about Ian's disappearance, we knew that we were going to be able to speak with his mom. She's been great. What we didn't know is that we would be able to talk to several people who have been involved in the search for Ian. So just a shout out. Thank you so much for all the people who participated. We spoke to some people off the record, and that's cool. Not everybody wants to come on the podcast. Totally fine. But we are just so grateful for all the people who did come on. And I think we ended up with, at this point, we have 7 episodes about Ian. So hopefully the work that we're doing here is bringing exposure and hopefully some, maybe not necessarily evidence, but some new thinking that we can share with Wakulla County Sheriff's Office, and hopefully we can find Ian.
All right, well, let's get into it.
Yeah. So we have 4 theories that we want to talk about. And so we're just going to go with what we believe is least likely. And the least likely scenario that we think, based on the information we have, is that Ian just drove away that day. That he just decided, he wanted to just not be involved anymore and take off.
Yeah, I mean, having someone that's an adult just walk away from the lives, I'm not saying that it's uncommon and not possible. The challenge we have in Ian's case is the evidence surrounding that, most notably his son's birthday. I mean, out of all days to walk away, is this the day that he would have chosen? Based on the people we've talked to, it's just not likely. Everyone unanimously agreed that he would not walk away from his son in any capacity, certainly not on his birthday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We also, of course, everybody's, where's the truck? We're going to talk about that a lot today. Where is the truck? It goes in various places. We understand that it can be tricky to take a vehicle across a state line or even travel from county to county. So we feel like if he would have left in that vehicle, it would have been seen somewhere along the way, other than just that one image that is the current one that we only know about. He also hasn't left any digital footprint, any financial footprint. The phone, there's been nothing from the phone, no texts, no calls. No financial things have gone on, nothing with the debit card, anything like that.
Yeah, physically and electronically, this person's life is shut off.
Right.
And that'll be a very difficult thing. Well, interestingly enough, you can do it. I mean, it's possible, but that takes money. And we don't have the impression that Ian has a lot of money to do something like this, nor does he have the motivation to do it.
And one of the things we do know, and I don't know that we've talked about this very often, is that he is in the NamUs system, which is a nationwide website of people who are missing. So this isn't just known local to Crawfordville, Tallahassee. He's in this national system with his picture and everything. There's been no sightings. No one who's looking at the NamUs page, which includes law enforcement, he hasn't been seen at all. So we would think that if he were to have left, he would have been seen somewhere.
Yeah.
At some point. Now, there are some things that maybe indicate that possibly maybe he did just decide to just drive away from the life that he had. And we do know that at the time of his disappearance, several people have talked to us about how Ian has said he didn't really feel worthy of the things that were going on.
Right.
Did you want to go ahead and talk about?
Yeah, the question is worthy of what? Why did he feel he was unworthy? And one of the things that has been a little bit of a theme, and you'll hear through a lot of other theories, is that Ian was a little bit more involved in drugs than average. And so as a result, could this be part of what led to some of that depression? Possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And since you brought up the substance abuse, sometimes that is evidence for leaving. Maybe the substance abuse has gotten so out of hand with someone that they do not want it to continue within the scope of the people that they love and care about. So they leave. Or it overwhelms them and they just get so deep into their substance abuse problems that they leave and go. Right. But regardless, we do not feel that he just decided to just drive away that day. That is our least likely theory.
Okay.
So let's move on. We do have a potential theory that he did possibly take his own life that day.
Okay.
And this is where things get real sensitive. So again, we want to just remind listeners that we're going to be talking about a very tricky topic. So as we just mentioned, we do know that Ian did have a substance abuse problem. And we also know the truck spot. Now, there's no guarantee that he was in the truck, but let's say he is in the truck. Where that truck was spotted the day he disappeared is a known drug area.
Tom Run Park is, if you go look at various resources from, the Tallahassee area, you'll find that it's got a high volume of drug trafficking and drug crime that's detected and even discovered in these areas, more so than other areas in Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know that he took this direction that was really not on his route. Was it impossible to get where he was going and go through this area? No, he could have done it, but it was way out of the way. And every person we talked to, Dan as well as Joe, indicated that if he was turning down this way, it's unlikely his intent was, at least, I wouldn't say not to go to work, but certainly not to go directly to work. And it's really interesting when you consider he was already late. So why did he do this?
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, substance abuse and narcotics is a way that someone can take their own life.
That's right.
And we know that this is something that he was involved in, and the truck was found near an area that is known for that. We also just talked about how we have people saying that Ian was saying he didn't feel worthy about the good things that were happening to him. We talked about specifically when we spoke with Joe, the good things that were happening at work, right? And then Ian was saying that he didn't really feel like he was worthy. And so that indicates, maybe all these good things were something that he couldn't cope with them.
Maybe that itself became the overwhelming part.
Yeah. Something also that is interesting, I know I can think of at least 4 people who have said something similar along the lines that Ian was really good about keeping his emotions and the challenges that were going on internally covered up, right? And so a lot of times you will hear people say something like, oh my gosh, I can't believe so-and-so took their own life. I would have never known it. Like the person seems so happy. Things seem to be going their way. And so when you have someone reportedly like Ian, who isn't necessarily forthcoming with his feelings, maybe that is something he was thinking about, but he never said anything to anybody like that. And then we also know that morning that he disappeared, he did not leave on good terms with his girlfriend at the time. We don't really know what happened. We don't know if there was a big argument. We don't know if maybe they were hoping for something in their relationship that didn't happen. But we do know that when they parted that morning, when he dropped her off for work, it wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't on good terms. We don't know we don't necessarily have confirmation of what that conversation was about. We've heard everything from it was a mild disagreement, all the way up to a major blowout, depending on who you asked.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, bottom line is he probably wasn't in a good headspace.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some things that maybe, don't lend themselves to him taking his own life. It's his son's birthday.
It's his son's birthday.
We're going to talk about that a lot.
Yeah, that's going to keep coming up every single time.
This is a very important relationship in his life. And this doesn't seem like if this were something you were going to do and you were planning to do it, that you would do it on that day.
Right.
Right. And as you just mentioned, he's still acting like he's going to work.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that's always bothered me about this as a theory is if he had intent here, because we have to think about what the intent was.
Mm-hmm.
If the intent was to take his own life, if that's the theory we're talking about right now,
mm-hmm.
he's already late to work. He calls his boss. He texts Nick. He's loading tools at his mom's house. We have confirmation that tools were seen on the truck spot image where they can see the actual ladders and stuff in the back. We can even confirm from a picture that his brother Dan took before he left the house that morning with those tools and those ladders in the back of the truck. He calls and he talks about the overheating of the truck. Why do all that? If you're intending to not go to work and do something else,
mm-hmm.
why not just no show?
Right.
There was a lot of extra effort that went into this that really steer me away from this as a theory.
Yeah. And let's assume that he is in the truck in the picture that was taken around 12:30 in Tallahassee, why would you drive up to Tallahassee?
Yeah.
If you had an intention of taking your own life. So let's talk about a new theory. This is some sort of accident, and we'll just start with maybe an accidental overdose.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we know that he's going to Tom Brown Park. We've already established the fact that this is a known drug area. So we're thinking that, okay, he's actually not intending to commit suicide. He's going to pick up some drugs, decides to do a little bit of drugs, and he accidentally overdoses. And yeah, I mean, that theory kind of makes sense. It has one major flaw I think we all agree with. We're going to talk about it over and over in this one. Where is the truck?
Mm-hmm.
Because, if there was no intent to do anything but maybe get a little drugs, take a little drugs, go to work, there's no intent to hide the truck. There's no, we're not talking about running the truck into a sinkhole. We're not talking about hiding the truck in the woods. Where's the truck?
Mm-hmm. And after speaking with some of the folks that do the water investigations,
mm-hmm.
I had talked about this earlier in one of our other episodes. This was a whole foreign phenomenon to me about the sinkholes and putting trucks and vehicles in water. We heard from the three folks that we talked to that sometimes people do accidentally drive into a body of water.
Yeah.
It seems, based on what we heard from them, that doesn't usually happen during the day. That might happen in a storm, when it's dark, or you miss the turn. But it is possible that he accidentally drove into some sort of body of water.
Right.
That's just another kind of accident. Something that I also think is important when we're talking about some sort of accident that lends itself to that theory is to our knowledge. There aren't any suspects, any persons of interest. There's been no arrests or anything like that. So to me, that means that they don't think someone else did this, that it was some kind of accident, whether it be a car accident, a truck accident, something related to substance abuse, or something we're not even considering.
Yeah, and that kind of transition is the next one, because there's a very important detail here that we're going to acknowledge, and that is at some point in the case discovery, this went from a missing person case to a criminal investigation. Now, the question is, what caused that to happen? We have lots of theories on what caused it to happen, but we don't really know what caused it. But it does, again, like I said, it lends itself to talking about it as foul play.
Yeah, potentially.
Which is theory 3.
Theory 4,
Theory
actually.
4, sorry. We're on 4 theory, sorry.
Right. So when we originally met Teresa and spoke with Teresa, she told us that she reported him missing, which is why the case sits with Ocala County Sheriff's Office. It was originally a missing persons case. And that was her belief that about 3 months from when she reported him missing, which was late August, the case was changed to a criminal investigation. And we have evidence to support that. I don't know about the timeline, but when we did reach out to Captain Srirachi to let him know that we were covering Ian's case and who could we reach out to if we got new information, he immediately directed us to Major Eddie Wester, who is over all criminal investigations.
That's right.
So then we were like, oh, if this has been switched to a criminal investigation, likely there's something we don't know, which is fine, as long as it is being worked on and leads to some sort of resolution. So we felt like we would be remiss not talking about foul play. Like, if Wakulla County Sheriff's Office sees this as a criminal investigation, then that means something criminally happened. And so we should discuss maybe he interacted with some sort of foul play. And we had several people, including one who was on the record with us, really believes that that's what happened. So we can just talk about that theory a little bit. We're going to say what we've said again. Looks like he's going to work. Right? Yep. He stops at his mom's house. He kind of hangs out there for a little bit. It seems like maybe a couple of hours, talks to his brother, gets the tools. We have this picture now that we know the truck left Teresa's house with the tools and the ladders around 9:30. So he's going to work, right? Everything seems normal. He's following his normal routine that day. And, up until that part, everything's looking pretty good. So if the foul play is really a thing, I think it comes into play when we're talking about going to Tom Brown Park. So, again, I'm not from Tallahassee, but you did a little bit of, I don't know, we'll call it research on sort of the nefarious things that happen around Tom Brown Park. If he would have met with some kind of foul play, feels like Tom Brown Park is a likely place for that to happen.
Yeah, because every person we've talked to so far is, and in all the evidence that has been collected that we know of at this point, everything culminates on that turn from Appalachia Parkway to Connor, heading into Tom Brown Park. And so we know about the criminal activity that goes on in Tom Brown Park. We know that it's typically drug-related, at least primarily drug-related from what we can tell from the research we've done. And it really goes down to what happened in that area.
We're going to go back to his son's birthday is the next day.
That's right.
Oh, he's not going to miss that. So maybe something happened. There was some sort of foul play. He interacted with somebody and then he was killed perhaps. And that's why he doesn't make it to his son's birthday, obviously. So that
doesn't make it to work.
Has something to do with it, right? He never made it to work. You're right. We also don't have any evidence, pictures of the truck leaving Tom Brown Park. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't.
Well, let me say this. I mean, I've heard that in a couple of different, conversations we've had. That truck is not in Tom Brown Park. And because Tom Brown Park is not that big. And if that truck was in Tom Brown Park, it would have been seen. And so I think that it's definitely not in Tom Brown Park. I think it definitely left. Mm-hmm. The question is which direction, who was driving, again, theme of the program here, where's the truck? Mm-hmm. Everyone's looking for the truck.
Mm-hmm. And some evidence against foul play, although we do know that in the eyes of the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office, this is a criminal investigation. Up to this point, obviously there haven't been any arrests, so that would be a direct link to foul play. And I don't believe that Teresa has heard anything about any leads or any suspects.
No, and we followed up with her multiple times, and she's always indicated to us that the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office has not reached out to her regarding any information. Mm-hmm.
We just discussed some pretty sensitive issues, and we talked about our theories of what could have possibly happened to Ian. I just want to bring everybody back to our two main purposes for doing our podcast. Number one is to bring exposure to the case and potentially bring up maybe some new leads or new ideas or some things that maybe haven't been considered or shared with the sheriff's office. And number two, and probably most important for us, is humanizing these stories and bringing the family back into the fold and hearing from them, and just remembering that these are things that have happened to actual people in the real world. I think the best way that we can make sure that we are practicing ethically and making sure that we are not forgetting that there are people involved in these cases is to hear once more from Ian's mom, Teresa. So surprisingly, it has been almost 2 months since we did our first episode with you, Teresa, on Ian. And I don't know about for you, but time went really quickly.
It did.
For us, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just want to ask you just some final questions. And I just want to start with, since we first started covering Ian's case, have you heard anything new? Something that you didn't know about when we first started? Something maybe that someone has told you, or something you've heard through the grapevine?
No, unfortunately, I haven't heard anything new. It was good to hear, Ian's boss, talk, and I didn't know that Ian had called in, that morning to, to say he was going to be late. So I guess that is new. But other than that, everything was pretty much, as I'd been told or had heard.
And was there anything that you heard that surprised you? Maybe it just wasn't even on the podcast, but maybe something that you read on a Facebook post or anything that you were like, wow, that's surprising to me.
Gosh, not that I can think of. It just seems, it seems like there was unfortunately, no new information or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
And have you heard anything from law enforcement? Has anyone contacted you in the past couple months from Wakulla County Sheriff's Office?
No, not at all. I haven't heard from anybody. And I was planning on going, maybe going up and seeing if I could talk to somebody. And then, things have taken an interesting turn in my life. So I really haven't had the opportunity to go up there and talk to anyone. So, but that's definitely on my schedule to see if I can, just see where they're at, if they have any information or, anything new. I would hope that if they did have anything new, that they would get in touch with me. But I haven't heard from them, no.
I think one thing when you do have an opportunity to go there that might be good to ask is there seems to be some sort of confusion, not necessarily maybe on their part, but certainly on our part, onto who is the point of contact. We've heard that there's Del Beato, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we also heard that there was some sort of transfer to someone who's over criminal investigations. And then also someone else who I had emailed had said something different. So I think for your clarity,
Really?
it would be really great to know who's in charge right now, who's overseeing the case and why.
Right. Because I was under the understanding that Detective Del Beato was over. I wasn't aware that it had changed hands like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Weren't we given Lieutenant Wester?
Yeah, that's what Captain Srirachi told me in an email, that any further, and then we actually updated that in the podcast so that it specifically says if anybody has an information, that's who they're supposed to go to, because that's what Captain Srirachi told us, and so we want to go with what he said.
Okay, yeah. I wonder why there was a shift. If it's just normal, or I'll have to find out.
I think that's a great question. I love it. What can the community do for you? Is there anything that the people who live in Wakulla County, and the surrounding areas could be doing that would be supportive for you?
Just keep your eyes open. I mean, I know that sounds cliche, but that's really all we can do right now. Keep an eye open for the truck, and keep an eye open for Ian. That's pretty much what I need, is for everybody to just keep looking. And, if you see something, and even if it, maybe oh, that's nothing. Well, it could be, so, let somebody know. And that's what I need. That's what I need.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask Michael you a question just because I don't know. We've talked a little bit about hunting season and things like that. So like when does that happen? And we might have people who are hunters who listen, or people who are married or in relationships with people who are hunters.
I mean, you're not going to really see hunting season again until fall. And so once fall and winter hit, that's when you're going to see the hunting seasons again. And I think we definitely need to encourage any hunters, especially in the area where we've talked about, like the Tram Road area, any forest area, frankly, that's heavily hunted between Wakulla County all the way to Tallahassee. We're looking for Ian. We're looking for that white truck. We're looking for any sign of there's been a truck or anything at all. And I'm hoping that the hunters in these areas are, at least some of them are hearing this podcast and they are, keeping an eye out for what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think last year, there was someone who went out and talked to, ran across some hunters and was, were asking them if they had seen anything. And unfortunately they hadn't, but, over there off the Tram Road in those, in those woods. So yeah, that's great. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And finally, what do you want people to know about Ian?
He's just, he's a really good person, and he's a good son, and he's got a good heart. Yeah, he's made some mistakes and he makes stupid choices like everybody does. But I love him and I know his son loves him and misses him, and I miss him a lot too. And I just really, really would like him to come home. Considering his brother passed away, and having the two of them gone is difficult. And so, Ian, if you're out there listening, please come home. It's time. And if anybody sees him or sees the truck, if they could give Wakulla County Sheriff's Office a call and let them know. And like I said, it may not be anything. It may seem like it's nothing, but it could really be something. And it would be great if Ian came home. I'd also want to thank everybody who went out when Ian first went missing, and people went out with their drones and were looking up in that area, just regular citizens. And I wanted to thank everybody who did that and went out and looked in the woods and all those sorts of things. And I wanted to let them know that I really appreciate what they all did. They didn't have to, and they did, and it was awesome.
As far as we can determine, Ian Rogers was last verifiably seen around 7:30 on the morning of August 26, 2024. At that time, he was picking up tools for work from his mother's home in Crawfordville, Florida. Somewhere close to 8 a.m., Ian spoke with his boss to report that the work truck he had just been given was overheating. It seems at least 2 text messages were sent from Ian's phone sometime after 8 a.m. and before 2 p.m. Ian never made it to the job site that day. At the time of his disappearance, Ian was wearing a black hat, sunglasses, a blue long-sleeve dry-fit shirt, a white undershirt, tan cargo shorts, and brown work boots. Ian has a half tattoo on his right forearm, which consists of 2 gorillas and a salt shaker, a tribal tattoo on his left calf, and a scroll tattoo with the word mom on his right calf. If you have any information, please call the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office at 850-745-7100, or you can email us at tragedy@truecrimepodcast@gmail.com.